everything you've heard of is probably true. There is no support in the ecosystem. There is lack of mindfulness that you feel post-birth. There's a lack of identity that you sort of want to attract towards yourself post becoming a mom. So everything you've heard that things are going to get tough, it's going to be hard to schedule things, it's all true. It is all true. And since I'm a new mom, I can tell you first-hand experience that yes, everything I heard of is actually true. You do have less power sometimes when you enter the room as a not just a woman but a new mom. Enter it keeping that in mind, and enter this with literally being super selfish with zero ego. And that's, I think, gonna help you go a long way. Don't have an ego, but at the same time be selfish. Understand your struggles. The room you're entering, they don't know what you're going through. They have no idea. So, be cognizant of that and just try to do everything that comes to an advantage to the business that you're building and the ecosystem that you're trying to build at home. I was working till the day I was admitted to the hospital. I took calls from the hospital. Thankfully, my parents' flight didn't land, because if they did see me on the calls, they would be like, what the hell? How is anything more important than your, life? Because your health is at risk, and that's the ultimate truth about giving birth, right? But luckily, I think that everyone around me in my ecosystem are so used to understanding and I think enjoying also the fact that I love what I do, that I just have huge support. For me, it was a two-way street. The work really helped me heal. Even though I want to say that the work needed me and Aastey needed me and that's why I was there, but that's what kept me sane. To make sure that I am being able to also not forget the Jeevika that I am and not just being called my daughter's mom, which by the way happened recently, that for the first time I met a lot of my friends and one of them just put a post on Instagram and tagged me and didn't call me Jeevika. They called me my daughter's mom and they just said mama in the house. And that's when it really hit me that my entire identity has changed. I am no longer just looked at as an individual, I'm actually her mom. So it's not till your closest people start pointing that out that you sort of, let it digest. As a woman, I think it was very important and very fortunate that I had that opportunity to have a place where I am still a boss rather than just a mom. And that place was very important for me as well. So I think it was personal decision and it was a very selfish decision that I continued to work, because that's where I found myself. That's where I had this reality check that hey, I still have a portion of my identity that is truly protected.
Jeevika is the mom to 8-month-old Avya, so a brand new mom. She's the founder of Aastey, a sustainable athleisure brand that's growing on an accelerated pace. And it's been extremely exciting to see Jeevika's story from the time she was building out her first venture, and there's a story we have to share in our conversation with you about that, to now building a company that's backed by some of the top venture funds in the country. So Jeevika, it's absolutely fantastic to have you here. And I'm going to share a small story about Jeevika, which just kind of shows what a hustler she is. So many years back, I remember meeting Jeevika at an event I was speaking at, and Jeevika and her then co-founder came up and pitched a company to me, and I was blown away. But what Jeevika told me many years later, which was just like last month or something like that, was she actually made up the name of the company on the fly while in audience, because we're like, well, Naiyya's here, let's pitch it to her while we're here. So that's the kind of hustler Jeevika really is, and I'm just blown away by that. So take me back a little bit though, Jeevika, before we get into life as we know it today. 20 years back in school, what was the Jeevika then like? And would your friends recognize you for who you are today?
Wow, firstly, thank you for that, for bringing us down the memory lane. But I want to spend an extra minute on that intro about the back in the day conversation that we had. When I saw you entering the room, you were such a powerhouse that I could not miss a chance to speak with you. And there was this long line, I had to cut through the clutter. So I was like, well, how do I get her attention? And I'm not going to go and speak to her and say, hey, we're building a company and not have a name. So you are the inspiration. That's the reason we had to come up with the name, just to get an opportunity to speak with you. But wow, back in the day, I wish I have a very cool answer, but I don't. I think my friends would say, they were expecting this out of me. I have been very consistent in who I am for a very, very long time, which is quite surprising because I've had these experiences that I never planned. I never planned that I'm going to leave the country at the age of 17 and go study abroad. In fact, I didn't even take my SATs on time. I think a month before my SAT, I realized I don't have the passport, which has not expired. So my dad and I ran to somebody he knew via to get a passport at the earliest. And that's how unplanned my life has been. Where literally, I still remember when I was in 11th grade, we were sitting together as a family, and I come from a family of overachievers. So I'm the one who got away. Where, my brother's career was sorted, everything was sorted, and they were looking at me, and I was all in 11th grade and saying, hey, what are you going to do with your life? You're not really acing the grades anymore. So that's when I was like, oh, damn, I better have an answer. Just how I had when I met you. I was like, just so I have an answer, I'll say, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to actually study business and not just do business. And I think I had to stick to that story. So by the time the 12th grade came, my parents asked me, what do I want to do? And I said, I want to build a business. So I want to study business. We looked around. There were no schools in India that were teaching business. There's nothing like study business, right? I just said it for the heck of it. And that's when I realized that you can actually get a degree in business if you go abroad and study. Of course, I've been very blessed. The means were given by my parents, etc. But there were no plans. Life's been super unplanned. And if you go back to my friends and ask them what is Jeevika going to do you think 20 years from now, they would say she would be running some company or doing something kick-ass.
Wow.
So the vibe was there, but plans weren't.
The boss mom vibe was always there, but I think the pathway you kind of figured out and winged it in some sense over time.
I think life has been like that. I've always winged it. That's a great way to put it.
So this is I think the second conversation I'm having around not being a good student, but that kind of showing a very different pathway, and I think a much more courageous, completely hatke pathway for the mom I'm talking to and the leader I'm talking to. So that's really interesting. But I'm going to come back to now, I think your first venture. It was called Staapu, from what I remember, right? And it was really an interesting construct. It was the Etsy of India.
Yeah.
And over time, you built out the largest base of culinary artists, right? So tell me a little bit about that journey, how that started, where that ended up. What do you want to, as you think back, what were the highs and the lows of that journey?
I want to talk about the highs first, of course. I think it was a very bold journey.
Yeah.
It required a lot of guts.
This is what, 2018, 2019?
No, in fact, it was much earlier. This was, when we say culinary artists, this was pre-Swiggy.
Wow.
This was around the time there was a company called Ola Chef.
Here
in Bombay, right? So this was pre-Swiggy. Swiggy comes in 2016 around and tells us how it's really done. And we were trying to do that back in 2014. And I think we built a business. We just didn't realize that, it's not about a cloud kitchen concept. It's a concept where you have to really crack the logistics. And that's where the magic happens. And then later, 2 years later, Swiggy came and did that beautifully. And we all know that. So always been very bold at taking these decisions. I think all our decisions have been ahead of time, a little before time. So even though it was a great business, it was slightly 3 years too early into the market.
And how do you know you had to call it quits on it? Or whatever the natural transition was?
That's actually very, very tough, no matter which stage of business you're in. Even if it's an idea and somebody, has to tell you, hey, it's not going to work. That's a heartbreak, right?
Yeah.
And when you're in Series D, E, and you have to tell your 200 employees that, it's not going to work out, that's a heartbreak as well. And you would know this better, but the bigger you become as a company, the tougher it is to cross that path. So for us, when our next round of funding didn't come through, and we knew that we have put every single, amount in our bank back into the company, and we were completely dry. We were in between. Do we keep pulling this through, or do we call it quits? And I think that's very, very tough. We took a call that we have to call it quits for the sake of the team, because there were people who wanted to move on and who should also, by all means, go and build this flourishing careers. We had to be honest to them. And that's why we call it quits. We called it quits for the people who had joined us in this vision.
Yeah, I think that's actually really a brave call to do.
Right.
It's not an easy one, like you very correctly said. Just today I was chatting with a fellow entrepreneur who's winding down the company.
Right.
And it's heartbreaking, right? Because you put so much of yourself and it's your first company. So I think you're even more attached. So I love the fact that you took a decision saying, okay, this is the right answer for the team.
Right.
And for where, honestly, both of you and your co-founder needed to go at that point in time as well, right?
Correct.
And so that brings us to, of course, a better, brighter innings with Aastey.
Right.
So what does Aastey mean? And tell us a little bit more about the premise of the brand. And I love the brand, by the way. I absolutely love it. I have to tell you, I saw your, all your athleisure at the CXXO event, and I'm a convert, to put it bluntly. But I think for those who don't know, tell us more about what Aastey stands for.
Absolutely. So Aastey is the second baby now.
Yeah.
Twice the charm. So Aastey is a sustainable athleisure wear that we've built for all the women across the world who are Indians, because Indian bodies are very, very different. And that's what we're building. We are, again, guts, because sustainability in our country has its own challenges in supply chain, in logistics, etc. But we're taking it head on. We spent more than 1.5 years just building the product and getting it right. And the idea was to make sure that our country has access to superior fabrics and superior quality products. That's been the journey of Aastey. About the name, you tell me. It's the Hindi word, guys. It's the easiest name anyone can come up with. Aastey chalo. Have you not heard of that? So that's
at odds with like the Jeevika as I know, and then the brand name, right? Because Jeevika is like hustling and moving quickly, and then there's Aastey.
Thank you for bringing that up. That's why we called it Aastey, because my co-founder and I are like always like hustlers. We're on the go and we're doing it all, and we're like, we are building this not just for the women of India, but first us.
Yeah.
We need to take it easy.
Yeah.
And we need to understand that life is a journey. Everything is not a competition or about winning.
Yeah.
It's about these moments that we build. I'm sitting here with you and I'm living Aastey right now.
Yeah.
So to us, it's not a business, it's not a brand, it's about a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that's what we're building. We're building an Aastey lifestyle. We're enjoying every moment. So that's the vision, that let's build products that would take us women from day to night without coming in our way, because there are already a zillion things coming in our way.
Yeah.
And the last thing we want is the hassle to know if the clothes is fitting us. In fact, that's how it should be, right? Our bodies are not supposed to fit into clothes. There should be every product that fits us. We've been altering our bodies for years.
Yeah,
Trying to fit into one size big, one size small.
And who's there to say that sizes are what should define us,
and it's
right?
something so personal.
Yeah.
We are the ones looking at the labels. Why do we let it bother us so much?
Yeah. So, Jeevika, now we're going to kind of move into a more like what makes Jeevika at home, right, segment. And not many people know this about you, Jeevika, but you're married to an actor, right, Aryan. And it must be really tough, because both of you are building your careers out. Both of you are in very demanding careers that require you to travel extensively, take bets, both, and which probably impact you a lot, like physically, mentally, emotionally, right? Yeah. How do you guys do it?
You don't do it.
I'm sure something is working, right? You have an 8-month-old, right? So how are you guys doing it right now? I mean, 8-month-old baby at home, you're a successful entrepreneur, he's an actor. Tell us more.
Yeah, sure. So, Naiyya, there has to be a system, and we don't have one, to be honest. We have lots of systems. We don't have one. We have tried multiple things. We've tried like co-sleeping with the baby sleeping with somebody else, maybe the nanny, the baby sleeping alone by herself on the bed like that, and us like on the floor. So the smallest of details, like how is the baby going to sleep? It all needs to be planned. And people look at us and wonder how we do it, but the truth is we don't really have a system. We are barely surviving, and I'm sure there are a lot of women who can connect with this, because you and I are here very put together, but honestly, this morning was a disaster for me. And I was this close to saying, hey, I cannot make it. But I think that's what makes us a bit different.
Yeah.
When we have commitments, we both are very focused. We want to keep to that commitment, regardless of the baggage we carry. And that's all we've got right so far, that we'll keep our commitments and take it one day at a time. And that's how it works. So we respect each other. There's mutual respect. If he has a bigger commitment, then I have to kind of call in and say that I have to work from home. And then if I have a bigger commitment, which happened today when something was breaking down at home, he had to leave everything and come, because that's the only way it's going to work. So the biggest way to, I think, make it work is to be flexible. If you have a routine, you have to, as a parent, you have to be flexible. You have to make sure that you're willing to say, hey, I will have to push this a little, or I will have to go home early, or I apologize, I have to leave it midway and pick it up from somewhere else. In fact, before marriage, we've known each other for a very long time, and we weren't that flexible. We were both very, very adamant. And that's something that marriage has taught us, that even though we dated for some beyond years before marriage, it took a marriage to teach us that flexibility. And that's what works for us, by being flexible, by being open to saying that, oh my god, I planned the entire day around it and now this is not going to happen. So have that flexible mindset, and that's how it will work.
That's a bit like entrepreneurship, right? Being comfortable with ambiguity, essentially, and like then basically figuring out plan B on the go while you're sort of like figuring.
And so is acting. We, my husband and I, our dinner time conversations are that we're in similar professions. Nobody knows this, but it's literally the same things we talk about. An actor going to auditions and getting rejected, me going to investors and sometimes not getting an opportunity to enter the room. It's literally the same. It's rejection. There is risk in both the careers. Both of us, I think, are risk takers, and we practically have the same sort of, we have a team. There's a lot of like processes, etc. That's what an actor's life is. An actor is just the front face. They have a team that supports them, and everything is planned to the T. So in fact, we think acting and entrepreneurship are just the same. And what really works for us is to have an open mind, have a flexibility in our heads that we cannot be married to the idea of that we're going to reach at this time and that's when we'll be back. You cannot have a child and have that. You have to keep an open mind and be like, you know what, I know this was the most important thing, but I have to cancel it.
And before we move on to back to like, your fundraising journey, because I love the fact that you've analogized acting in entrepreneurship so deeply, because it is a lot about putting yourself out there, being open to judgment, and being open to so much speculation about what you're doing, and so much like opinions about like how you're building your business or how you're leading your lives or whatever else,
Especially early on, right? It's very little about what you've built and more about, are these founders the one we want to invest in? Are these people who are going to just run away with our money, or are they actually going to build something out of it? So it gets very personal in the early stages of fundraising.
And tell us a little bit more about that, right? I remember I was meeting you and Vani together at CXXO, and Vani was saying that this is one of like my bright stars, right?
But she's our biggest cheerleader.
She is a very big cheerleader for you, and rightly so, I feel. But tell us more about that journey, right? I mean, like that first time when you met Kalari, or you went out fundraising, you closed your first round. And then I think a couple of months later, you found out you were pregnant when you were doing your SHAs. But tell us a little bit more about that.
It was horrifying. Let me summarize this.
The fundraising journey. I hope not the finding out about pregnancy journey.
You said it.
Well, no words, but over to you,
It was horrifying because two women, my co-founders also women, we are in a women's business. We're pitching to continuously a room full of men primarily. So firstly, we were too blessed to find Vani and her CXXO initiative.
Did you reach out to her, or did she and her team find you?
I think her team reached out to me on LinkedIn. So guys, there you go. Please go and update that LinkedIn bio or whatever. But yeah, it was her team that first reached out to me on LinkedIn. I can even tell you the date. That's how excited I was. It was the February of 2021. So they reached out to me and they wanted to learn more about the journey, and I'm very active on LinkedIn as well. So I immediately replied. I didn't blink, and I was like, of course, like, you tell me, your Zoom, my Zoom, Teams, whatever. And it was a blessing that CXXO initiative came around. I think July is when she built it. So immediately we had the thesis, right, that, women founders, etc. It was a good match, and we got Kalari's confidence. But being the planners that my co-founder and I think we are, my co-founder decided to get married. And I said, hey, fear not, we're going to plan this out. It's going to be perfect. While you're away, this is what I'll do, and this is how we'll handle your departments, etc., etc. We planned it to the T, to the extent that what happens if an emergency comes on the day of her wedding? How is she going to? Most likely it's an OTP or a payment, right? Those are our emergencies. That's like when you need the founder the most, what I've realized is
for the OTP.
Some OTP
I
or
can
some
relate.
payment, like as glamorous as it sounds, right? And she's like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to secretly message you, because she's Maru. And for those who don't have context, like, it's huge. You cannot pick up your phone on your wedding day, right?
Yeah.
So we planned it, and then one day I gave her a call and I said, I know that there are very high chances, because we were through the SHA, etc., the process of Kalari money hitting our account, but I've just found out something about myself that I want to share with you. And guess what she said? She's like, oh my God, don't tell me you're pregnant. So I was like, there you go. Big news. And then, of course, we celebrated, and she sent me this huge celebration package, etc. And then things got real. And then we're like, okay, now how is going to work? Because we haven't planned anything. And we feared, we have simple fears and the vulnerability of any other entrepreneur that, hey, if we tell this to our fund, how are they going to take it? One is getting married, others pregnant. This is our first year of really growing. Who's going to run the business? I think as women, we are most critical about ourselves versus the surroundings, and that sometimes works as a blessing. Even though all of that happened, and by the 4th month, I was able to, because I was sharing with friends, well, legally, I could have waited as long as I wanted, but I just wanted to be fair to the fund that had supported us. I want to be fair to Vani because she's our biggest cheerleader. Like I said, she's the first one to identify that, yes, there is literally no sustainable athleisure wear in this country, and there's a huge market here which is untapped. So she showed that confidence, and I just wanted to pay it back by being honest, and we had this conversation. And I am so glad that Vani is a woman. Because she took it like, hey, congratulations. She said all the things that you would want to hear instead of what's going to happen to the fund and who's going to run it, why did you hide, etc., etc. The 100 things that you cloud your mind with should be the question. So she kept it very professional and she congratulated me. We sort of had a mini like yay celebration, and we moved past it. It was that simple. And on the flip side, if it wasn't a fund that was supportive of just women entrepreneurs, I don't know if we would have got the money in our bank also, to be very honest, whatever be the reason. And that's the reality of it, that early stages you are investing in the founder, and if one thing does not align, then it all just falls flat. It's also about meeting right people, right time, right things happening and falling together. So it worked out beautifully. But of course, sorry, I know I'm doing all the talking, so stop me whenever. But
no, go for it. That's why you're here.
But I think it also gave me the confidence after they supported me that, wow, they have that much confidence that I can still run the show while I'm pregnant. And that confidence took me a long way. I was working till the day I was admitted to the hospital. I took calls from the hospital, and thankfully my parents' flight didn't land, because if they did see me on the calls, they would be like, what the hell? How is anything more important than your life? Because your health is at risk, and that's the ultimate truth about giving birth, right? But luckily, I think that everyone around me in my ecosystem are so used to understanding, and I think enjoying also the fact that I love what I do, that I just have huge support.
I find it really interesting the way you talk about, thank God my parents' flight didn't land right in time, because I couldn't have done my calls from my hospital bed, which is so interesting, right? Because, I mean, obviously your parents are probably your biggest cheerleaders.
Right.
At the
Always
same
very
time, I guess,
proud.
but I think at the same time, a lot of, I think, folks are still not able to maybe fully grasp the ambitions we all have as entrepreneurs and as women, right, today.
Right.
So I think it's really interesting you used that example as one to talk about how life was like right after becoming a mother.
Correct.
But how has life evolved now? Like, tell us more about now, 8 months in. You talked about the lack of process or the setting into but a lot of understanding, a lot of flexibility, right? That's kicked in.
Right.
Where is Aastey going today? How is your dynamic at work changed after becoming a mother, with your team at Aastey, with your vision at Aastey? Like, what has evolved? What has changed? Has anything changed, actually?
Right. I think everything's changed. I cannot say that, oh, I'm the captain and the ship is sailing just the way it was. Everything's changed because flexibility has come into my life, and it directly impacts the company. No matter how much we want to plan, luckily I have a team that has been through that journey with me. They know that yes, this person is leaving right now, but this is the same person who was in the office till the day she was admitted into the hospital. And that is, I think, going to go a long way. Just couple of well-wishers within the team who understand that.
And don't question your commitment, basically,
Right,
and your
right,
drive.
right. And you need those people, no matter how big of a team you are or how small. You always need that core team that believes in you, who understands you, and with whom you can be vulnerable. I may not necessarily tell my team that, hey, some personal commitment has come, but I've been able to develop a relationship with, especially in my founder's office, where I'm able to just be honest that, hey, you know what? All the help's cancelled on me. My nanny has a day off and I'm alone with the child, so I'm going to take this meeting from home. And while she can understand it and has that understanding, the same conversation goes to the team like, I am busy at home. I'll be taking this meeting from home. Right? And that's the kind of, I think, the way to sort of cover up, communicate. But at the same time, it's very, very important that if you have an ecosystem at home, you build a similar ecosystem at work when you get pregnant or have those responsibilities, because that's the only way it's going to work. Things are going to change and you can't ignore that.
But I really hope very soon, Jeevika, that there is a paradigm where we don't have to apologize for what is happening in our personal lives, because eventually we are one being, right? And I think
you really believe that's going to happen?
I'm hopeful. I am hopeful.
So am I.
And I think, it'll start with folks like us, right? I think the fact that you're sharing your journey here, you're talking about your aspirations, your ambitions, but you're equally saying, I was pregnant, I chose to go ahead with my pregnancy. I mean, of course you chose to go ahead with the pregnancy, but like, welcome my pregnancy. My family chose to welcome my pregnancy. My investors chose to welcome my pregnancy, right? I think that itself is a very, very big step forward, honestly. I want to get into a very quick part though, I think, and I honestly, when I look back, I wonder if it was the right decision or not. And I want to understand whether you took that decision. I was at that stage where we were doing our pre-series A for Baby Chakram.
Right.
And, post my pregnancy, I didn't take a mat break. I had a C-section, so I was in a lot of pain. I was hobbling to work. I probably took all of like maybe 2 weeks off. But I did not take a mat break. And
do you regret it?
When I look back, I had my very dear friends tell me that, are you setting the wrong expectations for the team and for people who look up to you?
Right. I can see that question.
And it was very interesting because for the first time I never even thought about whether it was the right decision or the wrong decision, right? I was only thinking from my perspective and what the business needed from me at that point in time and what I could have done.
Right.
What was your, how did you approach your maternity, not break, but your maternity time, the time to recover, the time to heal? Right. How did you approach it, and what would you have done differently or more of as you kind of like look back at that time?
I think it's a two-way street, Naiyya. I feel like even though I took the decision like how you did of not taking a maternity break per se, because legally I think we're allowed to take 6 months off, and I was back on calls right from the day I gave birth, but at the same time I didn't do any meetings for 2 months. I did not look at my Slack for 2 months. So I was very clear with my co-founder that, hey, I'm going to come to all the important meetings which are external, and all the everyday processes, etc. I wouldn't get involved, because even now I'm a feeding mom. Okay, so I'm lactating, and while it's easier to make other women who've especially had children understand that what does that mean for your breasts, they would explode if you don't feed. But you don't want to go into those details. Even with women who have not been pregnant, they're never going to understand it. And that's the truth. And with 80% of my workforce being women, I myself struggle explaining to them that I cannot sit in a meeting for more than 2 hours because I have to go feed the child. So I think, just coming back to the whole thought, that for me, it was a two-way street. The work really helped me heal. Even though I want to say that the work needed me and Aastey needed me, and that's why I was there, but that's what kept me sane, to make sure that I am being able to also not forget the Jeevika that I am, and not just being called my daughter's mom, which by the way happened recently, that for the first time I met a lot of my friends after 6 months. I know everyone meets them straight away, but I just waited. And one of them just put a post on Instagram and tagged me and didn't call me Jeevika. They called me my daughter's mom. and they just said mama in the house. And that's when it really hit me that my entire identity has changed. I am no longer just looked at as an individual, I'm actually her mom. So it's not till your closest people start pointing that out that you sort of, let it digest. As a woman, I think it was very important that I had, and I'm very fortunate that I had that opportunity to have a place where I am still a boss rather than just a mom. And that place was very important for me as well. So I think it was a personal decision, and it was a very selfish decision that I continued to work, because that's where I found myself. That's where I had this reality check that hey, I still have a portion of my identity that is truly protected. And so I feel it was a two-way street, and Aastey really helped me get through the entire journey beautifully, because I've had a lot of friends who are still struggling to sort of find themselves after becoming mothers, and they've been mothers for years now, right? So for me, I came out of the whole process and I'm stronger than ever. The reason I can give my undivided attention to my child is because I give my undivided attention to my meetings, and I come back and I'm like, thank you for being the support that you are and the sport that you are. By I didn't get a single call today at work saying that you needed me, so I'm just grateful, and that's when I give her my undivided time.
Wow.
So I think it's a two-way street, and sometimes we just say that things are tough, but those tough situations, we're also using those situations to help us heal faster.
Yeah. And to be fodder to our growth.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I love the fact that you're sort of deriving strength from your journey as a mother.
Right.
Of course, as an entrepreneur, the power you've already sort of created for yourself, the leverage, the trust, right? But I think becoming a mom has given you a more heightened sense of self.
Right.
I think it's super interesting, right? So we're going to close pretty much, but I do have one last question of you. There are like probably hundreds of thousands of moms who are going to be watching this episode, right, Jeevika? A lot of them aspire to be entrepreneurs.
Right.
When you look back at your journey and you look back at all, the learnings you've had along the way, what would you advise someone who's a young mom today, who's, pretty much trying to reclaim her sense of self and her identity, and to build something which is powerful for herself? What would you advise her? Like unfiltered advice, right?
Right. Unfiltered advice. Wow.
Imagine you're talking to your best friend.
Then everything you've heard of is probably true. There is no support in the ecosystem. There is a lack of mindfulness that you feel post-birth. There's a lack of identity that you sort of want to attract towards yourself post becoming a mom. So everything you've heard that things are going to get tough, it's going to be hard to schedule things, it's all true. It is all true. And since I'm a new mom, I can tell you first-hand experience that yes, everything I heard of is actually true. You do have less power sometimes when you enter the room as not just a woman but a new mom. Enter it keeping that in mind, and enter this with literally being super selfish with zero ego. And that's, I think, gonna help you go a long, long way. Don't have an ego, but at the same time be selfish. Understand your struggles. The room you're entering, they don't know what you're going through. They have no idea. And so, be cognizant of that and just try to do everything that comes to an advantage to the business that you're building and the ecosystem that you're trying to build at home.
So you do feel the need to somewhat overcompensate for the fact and put in that extra more because you're a mom and a woman?
I think, we're a long way to say that we are living in an equal world. Absolutely. I continuously feel that. And I'm saying it with all my heart. I mean,
that's what we want to hear from you,
my
right?
marriage is beautiful. My husband is literally the most supportive, one of the most, and that's something my guy friends also tell me. So, husband that one can have, like.
But I want to close on this note, right?
Right.
But then how does someone who's looking at you and says, but this woman is still doing it, right? She's still finding it in herself to move forward, to move ahead.
I think to be very honest,
that?
Be selfish. They don't know what you're going through. You don't have to tell them about your stories, but be selfish at the same time. Understand that you're building this vision. You're going to do it regardless. Whether somebody tells you this is not a good business, or you are not worth it, or you can't do it, there's somebody smarter who's just graduated from another Ivy League and is going to build something bigger and better. Those conversations happen every day around everybody. That has nothing to do with you. And hence, as a woman, you have to be selfish and get your word in.
And you have to be the main character in your
You have
story.
to. Thank you for. That's what I wanted to say. What am I talking about all this?
No, but
that's what I want to
totally
say.
get it.
Can we have this in bold, like right here? What she just. That's exactly what I wanted to say.
No, I love that. I love that. And you know, Jeevika, thank you for being so transparent, so candid, and so authentic. And you know, your baby is all of 8 months old. I'm kind of reliving my days when Arya was 8 months, and yeah, it wasn't easy. But
and our baby have similar names.
And have the similar names, yes.
Yeah.
But for what it's worth, you know, it does get easier. And I think what you said is so well said, that the more you push, the more people make way.
Right.
So yeah, here's to you keeping on pushing. Not Aastey, but in true Jeevika style, pushing hard, getting ahead, getting forward, and inspiring all of us here.
I do want to say that if you are getting a no, don't take it as a dead end. Go for the next no. And that's what your focus should be as a woman. And that's I would say, the advice. Sounds as boring as it sounds, always go for the next no.
Love it. So Jeevika, now we're going to go into a segment called Never Have I Ever.
Woohoo.
There are no drinks, it's the placards though. And it's going to be a bunch of fun questions, but also like I think some insightful ones. So, you know, be real, be authentic, and anything you want to share, right? But be honest. Okay.
Always honest, Naiyya.
Always
honest.
Do it. Never have I ever left my baby crying and gone to a business meeting. Guilty as charged as well.
I would like to say she was talking.
She was talking, not crying. Of course,
Yeah.
she was articulating. Never have I ever felt that telling people I'm a mother would make me look weak.
I mean, I don't enter a room saying, "Hi, I'm Jeevika, I'm a mother."
Yeah.
Do you?
No, don't, but I don't know, it's becoming more and more part of our identity, right? And I think it's interesting.
Right.
Never have I ever lied about a sick day to spend time with my child.
Not yet.
Not yet? Well done.
Not yet.
Okay. Wait till she's about 4 and always falling unwell. Never have I ever apologized for my baby crying in the background during a Zoom meeting. You have?
10x.
Yeah.
You know, this one time I have to say, I was putting my AirPods on and I had the transparency mode while I thought I didn't have that mode on.
Right.
So everyone could hear the background and I just assumed that, nobody can hear what's happening. It was a crazy conversation between my baby and the japa.
Punctuated.
Yeah. It was just spook details and it was crazy.
Okay. Never have I ever missed out on my kids' important milestones.
The control freak that I am.
Wow, well done.
I'm like that, like Bernie in How I Met Your Mother, you know, who has the camera on at all times. Somehow I've managed it, Naiyya. I have captured every single moment that is important so far.
Wow. I think that's a blessing.
think
You've
it's just
done
a
better than
control
I did, honestly.
Business.
But I'm going to move on to our next segment now, Jeevika, which is around an inspiring message, right? You want to leave to all the mums who are aspiring leaders or leaders watching this show.
Right.
Any like one line that you want to leave with them to kind of think about and replay it when the going gets really tough?
I think you have to think of it like changing diapers, right? The baby always says no to it. The moment your baby becomes a toddler, it starts moving. And every time you're trying to change the diaper, the baby's moving out for some reason. Otherwise, the baby's still, right? And something comes in their head where they're like, oh my God, diaper, right? And that's what life is about. The moment you're pushing something, obviously all things around you start moving, but you still get the diaper on, right? Because otherwise there'll be shit everywhere. And that's how you deal with life. As a mom, you have to deal it that way, that let things happen, go do what you set out to do. And if your baby's saying no, just try again and go for the next no.
What I find really powerful about this conversation is that, you know, despite the no's, right? Despite the multiple no's, despite the multiple times of judgment and people's opinions and the weight of that on our shoulders, here's Jeevika.
You have to get the diaper on.
Yeah, and getting the diaper on and moving ahead, moving upwards, moving onwards. So more power to you, Jeevika.
It's a complete pleasure, Naiyya. You're an inspiration to me.
Thank you.
So really honored to be here.
Thank you. So, Jeevika, the team at Momsco has put together this beautiful hamper from Momsco for you. I know you know many of the products already, which I'm so happy to hear, but this is for you, and
The
thank
nipple
you.
butter.
The nipple
I
butter.
can see it.
This is
Oh
for you.
my God, thank you. I love it. I love it.
Join me again on Momsco Mompreneur Legends, our show where we have honest, no holds barred conversations with India's top mom entrepreneurs. Till then, goodbye.